instead of balancing that individual out because human being.
That's right.
You know, we see a lot of that when they talk about Dr. King, or now, Frederick Douglass, any of the other ones, just concentrating on the positive side, so many speakers, without dealing with the whole individual. And I think the danger of that is deifying these individuals.
Thank you so much for an amazing informative play. I didn't know much about the Marcus Garvey until today. And most of his speeches that he had reminded me a lot of Zimbabwe's president, Robert Mugabe, who is well known and documented as being a dictator because he's been trying to get all the African leaders and nations to claim their land back. The only thing that I was trying to understand with Marcus's agenda about going back to Africa, was he wanting to go back to Africa and bring his people back to Africa to help Africans realize and find their own power, or to help the Black Americans to find their peace? I understand the political nature of it, but he was going back to a continent that's already standing by. So was he going there to help the Africans find their power? That's something.
I mean, yeah, because when you look at the Nigerian situation, up to now, they still have 5 control corporations in Nigeria. They've been there since 1800s, and it's the same. So going back to to Liberia was helping the Africans see that if we own our resources, because during that time the World War, I think it was 1 or 2, was about to start, and they were buying a lot of rubbers around the world. So he knew if they can own the rubber plantation and start producing from manufacturers so they can sell the finished product, then Africans will see that we own our own resources and we'll control the pricing in the marketplace. If they had done that in Liberia, that would spread to the rest of the world of Africa. They would say, oh, okay, instead of selling the raw material, we'll build a factory right here and sell the finished product. So it's helping both, and for the African Americans, they didn't want after slavery just to take people back, so let's go back to Africa without any, not no jobs or nothing. So people were like, why are we going? We don't have anything down there. So if they have a corporation, the business going, okay, you have a job to go, you're gonna go work, you're gonna make money, so you're gonna make a living, instead of just packing the things and living after almost 300 years out here. So yeah, so it's both ways, both for the African American and both for Africa. And that's what changed the continent. Because like right now, we know they don't produce anything there, they just take the resources out. And they don't have any control of the market prices. But if we own the resources, if we produce it and sell the finished product, you can put your own prices. That's what we're completely different.
And then, I was gonna say, you go ahead.
Can I piggyback on that? Were the Liberians open to that? Were they welcoming people having
because
background?
Liberia, like I said, Liberia and Ethiopia was probably the 2 African countries that were never colonized. Because so Liberia had their independence in 1847, so-called independent. Because after slavery in Liberia, they took some African Americans to Liberia, so they were already African American back to Liberia.
Wasn't Liberia
That's what I
But there were problems. There were real problems.
Yeah.
That's what
between
they
the
said, it
returning
was
Americans.
founded.
That's my question. Because
Yeah.
I think it was, because I always feel almost like, there's a thing sometimes feeling, even with among Black people, is going to be the savior of this continent.
That's what ended up happening with Liberia. Liberia was, they say it was founded for the free slave, but there was already indigenous Liberians.
Yeah.
So when the African American went to Liberia, they went with the same American system and imposed it on the indigenous. So that's why the war started in 1990, because since 1847 up to 1976, 1980 was what we call the Congo Liberians. Those were the African Americans that left from Africa, from America and went to Liberia. The other one was ruling, and they maintained the same superiority they had what they did to them here. So the indigenous was the lower class. So they had all the education, all the businesses, all the money and everything. Until 1980 when they have the first indigenous Liberian become president, which is Sam Kado. That changed, dynamics. So
Yeah, and if I could add one last thing, it was.
Why don't you wrap it up and then give Michael a chance?
Yeah, it was, I think there's another question. But in 1920, this was 40 years before Africa, the continent, became independent. So France, Britain, all these different countries, European countries owned the African states. So what Marcus Garvey wanted to do was to claim land in Africa for Africans, because he felt like a nation, every race needs to have a land, kind of like the Jews. And he wanted to do that more so for industry. He wasn't trying to bring everybody back, but to create industry and to create wealth.
Because black people have nowhere to get deported to. is a big factor. Like, if you're Asian, you're Chinese, you know, if you're Arab and there's this Arab country that can speak out on your behalf, you know, there's a connection there where they can speak out if something happens in America. And similarly, the U.S. government can always deport you there if they don't like what you're doing. But black people in America, we're kind of like refugees, and in a lot of ways we still are. We don't have a place that they can bring us to, but they also kind of don't really need us the way that they needed us as slaves. So, you know, we're really trapped in a sense.
Phil, can you get, Chris?
Would anybody like to?
Chris, Roger,
No, the problem is that we've kind of overstayed our time. So I just want Michael to wrap it up as Hoover, which is the main antagonist, and Bono to wrap it up. Just give us some idea of your general perspective.
Takeaway: people are going to be really divisive assholes and try to keep us apart. They're going to pick on little delineations when really, as human beings from the moment we're born, one thing that we will always all share is a sense of loss. Whether it's you lose a friend, whether it's you didn't get something, but there will always be something that can be picked apart when really that should be what brings us together. So support small businesses, help build everyone up, and don't let people tear you down.